picture behind me is of Zanaya, and that will always be haunting because it was taken just a short time before the evidence shows that she was never seen or heard from again. It was taken by Nazaya herself, a selfie. That's the last known picture that we know about of her. It was pointed out to me by one of the detectives on this case and by one of the prosecutors. She is smiling and waving and saying hello. But little did she know that she was really saying goodbye.
This story, so incredibly tragic. Nazaya Harris, little 13-year-old girl, should be enjoying those teenage years, you know? Should be having fun, laughing with her friends, going to school, learning, doing all of those things, but she's not. And she's missing, but presumed to be dead and murdered. I want you to take a listen to Kim Worthy. That was the prosecutor from Wayne County. Here she is talking about the evidence against the man that they have accused of the murder. And there's a connection between this man and Nazaya's family, and a lot of the facts here are disturbing, to say the least.
The evidence shows overwhelmingly in this case that she is in fact deceased. The last time she was seen alive was January the 9th of this year, 2024, almost 9 months ago. Her missing status was reported to the Detroit Public School Police Department by her grandmother on that very day, when she never returned home from school. And again, that was January the 9th of 2024. In early February of 2024, the case was turned over to the Detroit Police Department. Frankly, that should have happened right away, but they began investigating immediately. The evidence would further show that through text messages that we know and that we have, Zanaya and this defendant were going to meet after school on January the 9th. We know that she did indeed meet up with the defendant that we're charging in this case. We also know that several people close to Mr. Butts, who we were charging later, saw them together in several different locations, people that he knew well. We have evidence that at 9:30 p.m. on that day, that Mr. Butts checked into a motel and that Zanaya was never seen or heard from again. Damn. Not from her family, not from her schoolmates, not from her friends, not from social media where she was extremely active with her friends, not from teachers, no one. We know that she had no medical conditions that would cause a life-threatening medical emergency to her. And he, again, was the last person that saw her alive. She would have turned 14 years old just 10 days ago on September the 16th of 2024. And again, no one has seen or heard from her. You look at that face and you do not see the horrors that she had gone through in her short life. The exploitation, the molestations, the sexual abuse, and the pregnancy that she was concealing. The evidence will show that from one of her text messages to and with Jarvis Butts.
Fucking devil right there. Is that why he killed her? Because she was pregnant?
And we also know, the evidence will show, that there's no evidence of anyone else being the father of that child other than the defendant himself, who we charged today. And he knew she was pregnant. We know that he was also searching for ways to abort the baby. We know that sexually explicit photos were requested by him of her and that she complied and sent them to her. All at the hands, we allege, the man we are charging with her death and also her long-term sexual abuse. Today, we are charging Jarvis Butts with 1 count of first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, and 1 count of child sexually abusive material. Today, we are also charging Mr. Butts with more counts of criminal sexual conduct on 2 more girls, yes, girls, on 2 other separate cases. The girls in question now are 20 and 11 respectively today, but both were under the age of 13 years old at the time the offenses occurred that we're charging.
Oh, he's a serial pedophile. Oh.
Based on all the evidence that I've laid out now and much more that will be shown later in court, based on all these cases we will present in court, Mr. Butts targeted and befriended women who had to have sexual relationships with their young daughters. He would have relationships with their mothers, but his true desire was to have sex with their young daughters. That's what the evidence will show. He was a classic and expert groomer and pedophile.
Sounds so familiar. A lot of parallels with this case and what happened to Madeline Soto down in Florida. And it's these predators. They know how to do it. They know how to get close to children. And that's apparently what happened here. I want to bring in a special guest with us tonight. Joining us from Detroit, Michigan, Neziah Harris's cousin, Roxy. Roxy, thank you so much for joining us. This is a huge development in the case. Wanted to get first your reaction to the prosecutor, Kim Worthy, making the announcement that the charges have been brought in this case.
It's definitely a sense of relief here to finally be able to hear her say those words that we've been knowing from the beginning. Like I said in our last interview, you know, we, considering his background and things like that, we had our suspicions, and we're glad that they finally came to light today.
So can you explain for us the connection of Jarvis Butts and Neziah and Neziah's family and your family?
The connection with Jarvis is Jarvis was Neziah's aunt boyfriend. And they also have children together as well. So that was how he was able to be.
He got children with the aunt, not just going with her? Oh, was he touching his own children too?
Around the family as the immediate family that Neziah was living with, I assume as often as he wanted to be.
And his history, how well did people know his history and what he liked to do, which was prey upon children?
She was last seen exiting a school bus in the area of Cornwall and 3 Mile Drive. She was wearing a light blue jean shirt, light blue jean pants, pink and white Rugrats coat with a fur collar and blue and white Nike gym shoes. Zaya is 13 years old, 5'2", 130 pounds, little girl.
His history was very well known. I mean, he did do time in prison before for sexual misconduct of a 13-year-old girl or under as well. And I think he did 10 years in prison for that as well. And it was also very well known to her aunt, who was her boyfriend, that he let it be known to her as well that he was also, a sexual predator, and he left a decision up to her whether she wanted to continue to have a relationship with him, and she continued to have a relationship.
That's probably him right there. Once he let you know I'm a sexual predator, he probably been dating her for a while. He's like, before we go any further, I want you to know I got this charge, but it don't matter, blah, blah, blah. Will you accept me? And I'm changing. And once she accepted it, he knows that any sane women would be like, what? You got what? And what? Hell no. But he think he got it already. That's the test question right there. If they do that, they get the job of dummy of the year, and now their children is at risk.
Relationship with him, knowing that he previously had those charges against him, did time for it, and that he was a registered sex offender.
How long? Because what the prosecutor said, Prosecutor Worthy, the long-term sexual abuse, and that's the part that just breaks your heart. How long did he have access to Neziah?
From what the prosecutor said, they said that they have messages going back to 2022. However, I personally believe that he's been around the family longer than that, considering the fact of, the amount of children that he has with Neziah's aunt, and those children, I think the oldest is probably 11 or 12 years old. So he's been around for a while.
I want to take a listen to the prosecutor here who was answering a question during this press conference. Let's take a listen.
Some of Neziah's relatives said they previously had talked to CPS about allegations of sexual abuse both Neziah and other kids. Did that ever make it to your office? Is that something that police have investigated before?
Yeah, let me just say this, that if anyone that is watching this press conference right now or reads any of the coverage that I'm sure that you will give this, has any reason to believe that they were a victim of his or that they know something else, we certainly welcome them to contact the Detroit Police Department.
So it wasn't a direct answer to the question, but Roxy, from the position of the family, is there any level of frustration that the family knew of this, they were reaching out and nothing was done? Is anyone, like, there's obvious blame, Jarvis Butts is the one, right? But is there any level of shared blame amongst anyone else who didn't do anything here?
I mean, absolutely. There's definitely lots of frustration within the family. There were family members that called CPS several times. There were family members that called the police as well, and nothing came of it.
Oh, so people, okay, so this wasn't we have a pedophile in our family and nobody's saying nothing. They called the police before. So that's probably why he felt like, oh, they coming, she needed to disappear. He knew that she needed to disappear. They'll not just kill her, they find her body and do an autopsy and find out she's pregnant. They'll be like, who impregnated this 13-year-old girl? He know that her body needed to disappear, so he threw this little girl away. So it makes sense why she had to be presumed. Because he already had a history. They would have questioned him, and boom, it's him. So without the body, it's still a question. That's crazy. Did her aunt know? Because she should be thrown under the jail, too.
CPS is supposed to be, safeguard welfare for our children, and they're supposed to be able to respond promptly and do thorough investigations to be able to negate, reports of abuse and neglect. And because of the reports of the abuse and the neglect and the molestation that were reported to Child Protective Services, and for it to just seem like, there wasn't a thorough investigation being done or just turned a blind eye. And unfortunately, it's brought us to this very unfortunate event, which is, my cousin being deceased today.
That's exactly the problem here, right? It's Child Protective Services. That we want them to protect them before this happens. If we know of something, see something, say something, make a report, and unfortunately, Naziah was not protected in all of that. I have to point out that your shirt says, "Where is Naziah?" because she still hasn't been found.
Right.
How important is it that
her body is still, they do not have her, they have not found her body. They do not have her body. So we will continue to.
Did he have any luggage or anything leaving that hotel? That's where she at. Where did he stop at? Did he stop at a bridge or a gas station? They're going to find that little girl.
Ask, where is Naziah, so that we can be able to give her the proper rest that she deserves. She didn't deserve any of this to happen to her. She was only 13 years old, or 14 just 10 days ago, and it was hard to even try to have a celebration for her because it was not a celebration, and it should have been. So we will continue to ask, where is Naziah, until we get those answers, because she needs to properly be laid to rest properly, because she deserves that.
Absolutely. And Roxy, it's important that the family does exactly what you're doing. Let everyone know this doesn't end right now. It doesn't end with an arrest. It doesn't end with a conviction.
Right.
We need to find Naziah as well. Roxy, thank you so much. We'll speak again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, see Kirk Nurmi, Nima Rahmani. Here's the question, and I'll start with you, Kirk. Like, if the guy is a convicted child molester, gets out, we know who he is. The family, at least part of the family, very concerned. They're reaching out to CPS. If we can't protect that child, who can we?
CPS knew his charges already. That should have been like a case to the utmost, like it should have been top tier level case. We have a guy who's been convicted of raping a child under 13 multiple times. Now he's in the house. It should have been like weekly check-ins at school, whatever, asking her questions, therapists. Like, come on. I've seen them do more for less. That's crazy.
Protect.
You're right, Vinny. I mean, the sad reality is we have predators like this. You mentioned Madeline Soto. There was a little less different. We also think about Sandra Birchmore, and some of the accused is a police officer there. So yes, we can do all we can, and the prosecutor's advice to be very careful of who we let in our home and have access to our children is very important, very well taken. And sadly, you can see this over and over again. We just mentioned a couple cases. These predators are so adept, and that's one of the reasons I believe that someone convicted of a crime of this nature, a leopard doesn't change his spots, and Mr. Butts should have been in prison for the rest of his life once convicted of such crime, so he wouldn't be in a position where he is now. I think that's where the real solution lies.
I agree. Nima, they don't get better, they get worse. But here's the problem, right? Like, the time that the system has to step in is when a child is not being protected at home. Like, that's the purpose of child protective services. Known pedophile makes his way into the family, and there is someone in the family, I think more than one, reached out to CPS. Like, I don't understand how this continues to happen, how they don't, 2 + 2 = 4. Like, it's simple. Like, someone's got to step in if the family's concerned, but there's some sort of fracture.
A chance when he's molested others under the age of 13. You have family members. Obviously, Butts has a apparently sexual relationship with Nazia's aunt, and that gives him access where the family members doing. Apparently, some of them called CPS, but they didn't step in. And even with respect to Nazia herself, there's a coworker that sees what's going on. There's Butts, and these are all allegations. Like, was Butts' own sister? They check into a motel together. She hasn't had her menstrual cycle. She's pregnant at the age of 13. I mean, there's so many warning signs, Vinny. And if anyone had stepped in and done their job and done the right thing to protect this young girl, should
all it takes was one person to do something extra. One person.
Probably still be alive today.
Eklund, people who work for CPS don't get paid a lot. They've got tons of cases. They got tons of files. But I'm looking at this from that perspective and all the adults in her life. And no one took the action necessary to save her. No one.
I actually have a problem with it. It starts with, since 2005, Mr. Butts was on the sex offender registry. He currently is on the sex offender registry and is showing as compliant. When you are on the sex offender registry, you can't even be around a child, look at a child, be on social media or anything like that. He wasn't even supposed to be in the same vicinity of this child, let alone be able to do anything. The moment anybody called anybody with regards to him being in the vicinity of a child, he should have been arrested because he's on the sex offender registry. So it's not CPS and the caseworker's issue. It's a criminal issue because he is a criminal and he was on the sex offender registry. But currently, those that are in charge of it have him currently as compliant. So the system, it broke in 2005, not in 2024.
Damn, that's right. He's on the sex offender registry. I felt like that. I don't know if it's a law, but I thought they had just to inform people, like, hey, I'm on it, and tell all their neighbors and stuff. But he went and lived with a woman with the child. Like, that's red flags right there.
So this man has been able, he did what he was supposed to do. The people who put him on the list didn't do what they were supposed to do. And this is a problem. He's been on the list since 2005.
Kirk, there seems to be no purpose of the list. Like, we make a list. All right, here's a list. That's great. You've got to do something about the list. There has to be some level of monitoring, follow-up, some level of coordination. So it's the family, adults in her life are letting her down at home. And then you've got the other part that our system is not getting the job done, filling the gaps where they need to. It's absolutely mind-numbingly frustrating, Kirk.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, but Eklund raises an excellent point. Once that family members, once they contacted authorities, if he's on a sex offender registration, whether it's related to an offense for which he's on probation or whether it is a new offense violating those terms, being in contact with minors, that should in fact be enough to put him in prison, not just have CPS intervention. So to some extent, in the defense of the family, they really did all they could in the sense of with authorities. It was the police and what have you that failed to follow up on.
One man in that family go there and be like, yo, we'll break your fucking neck. Like, he wasn't even a big dude.
The sex offender registration, and one of the explanations for that is there's a lot of people on that registration which people can fall through the cracks, which goes back to my point earlier, the idea.
Yo, let's see that next. Is it a Netflix movie? Where's the whole thing of the people who put people on probation in China and they like monitor them, and the dude who's really good at fighting was like his bodyguard, and he became one. Yeah, see that, man? That was a crazy movie. I forgot the name of that.
That they shouldn't be out. There shouldn't be a sex offender registration list. There should just be a sex offender prison with a lifelong residency.
They have a whole sex offender list, just all sex offenders.
How we doing, guys? We good?
That was the end of that. But let me know what y'all think, Cave Dwellers. That was crazy. Thank you, Court TV. Yeah, somebody else should be going to prison too. This is like the R. Kelly type thing or the Diddy type thing. Like, if there's a charge, I guess other people should go to jail too, because everybody knew. The parents, the family, like, come on. I don't know. But this man should be thrown under the fucking prison, and he gonna get what he need to in prison. Believe that. Let me know what y'all think, Cave Dwellers. This is sad. R.I.P. to that little girl. She's dead. Hopefully find her. Maybe she's in a shed somewhere, and he kept her in a dungeon till she give birth, and then tell people she ran away or something, or send her down south. Who knows, right? Maybe he did something like that, and she's still alive somewhere. Ugh.